Welcome everyone to Awesome Truth, a wrestling book club. I'm your host, Steve Semino, and with me as always is my co-host, Walt Schwenk. Hey, Walters.
Hello, Steven. How's it going?
My friend, it is going very well. We are back on Awesome Truth, and we are going back to WrestleMania. Well, we've had a lot of Mania talk thus far, and we are returning to it once more, because not to necessarily talk about the Mania that just occurred, though I'm sure we'll get into that at a certain point, but we want to talk about a new WWE documentary that dropped in the very recent past to sort of build enthusiasm for this year's Mania. It was another entry in the WWE 24 series for WrestleMania 38, so it was basically a backstage look at last year's Mania. A beloved Mania, a great show, one of those ones where you were like, wow, is this company sort of getting their shit together? And then, maybe not so much, but a very, very solid show, a fun one to revisit, Walt. And this is, this WWE 24 series, as we talked about before, especially, the ones that do this sort of backstage look on a day. This is the kind of thing I think that makes the network and makes WWE documentaries and all that stuff worthwhile.
Yeah, it was the bread and butter. And I feel like one of our highest rated podcasts was it's like the Rumble of Royal Rumbles or the Mania of WrestleManias.
Yep.
I was definitely
both of those did gangbusters. Still do.
It's just like, this is such a fucking slam dunk for this company. You have a billion hours of backstage footage and you have all this access to everybody. And, they've kind of built their own ethos of like what it means to have a WrestleMania match and how special it is, to the point where like 90% of like the storylines heading to WrestleMania is, how will he or she get to WrestleMania? So it's like, yeah, do your goddamn retrospective. It's like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, give us the build-up. Do your, and mostly drop kayfabe, here and there, they'll keep things going. But it's about as honest as they'll get at a look at these performers and the excitement and the build-up and the enthusiasm and the spectacle. Like, it shows all that. Like, I love it. Like, I will say their choice of who to focus on is always interesting, which we can get into. It's not, this one could have been 50 minutes on Austin and Kevin Owens alone. Like, honestly, maybe that was a better call. I think they probably had the footage, and I would have taken even the nooks and crannies of the build up to that and all the swirlingness around that. But even when it is a Rick Boogs, for example, I'm still somewhat intrigued just because it's WrestleMania, just because even the lowest match on that card has an aura around it that you're like. At the very, I'm always curious, like, how did that get on Mania? Why was that there? Does anyone like? There's always something there. There's a nugget there that keeps me coming back.
Yeah, if you can maybe give a shit about Rick Boogs.
There's a lot of Boogs in this. This opens basically with Rick Boogs, and I don't know if that was the choice I would have made.
But you know what, though? We are in a world, in an era of this company where it's like, I don't really tune into NXT anymore. I really don't. I mean, like, I'm sure it's still good in some ways and probably frustrating creatively in others, but like, I didn't know who Rick Boogs was when he came to the main roster, and I didn't know anything about what the hell he did and like how he got started. So like, in that aspect, for those kind of characters, this is a thing like this is actually kind of important for, I hate to say I'm a casual fan at this point because I do the podcast on this bi-weekly, but it's true. Like, I don't fucking know Rick Boogs. Like, one day Nakamura is King Nakamura, and the next day he's teaming with Rick Boogs and he's playing him to the ring every week on Friday nights because I don't, I have other things to do on Friday. So my point though is like, this is actually really well, like, this is a good use of time to kind of introduce me to these people that like are in WrestleMania. I have no idea who the hell they are. Yeah,
and Rick Boogs is a great, the reason another reason that was enjoyable and worth including is he's, hearing his backstory and how he is on Mania, after wild ups and downs, barely being in NXT, he's one of those guys who got the bump to the main roster and somehow hit. And, so many NXT guys and girls have come up and flopped and failed or shuffled around. Like, he had a niche that he made his own, and he capitalized on it and got a Mania match. And, like, there's a story there. Again, do I need 20 minutes on it? Maybe not. But does it sort of illustrate what can happen? The Rocket being strapped to an NXT person, rising to the top, getting the opening match at Mania. Like, there's something there, and that's great. And like you said, it's a primer, it's a refresher on who this guy is, why he's there. Like, there is a lot about him that is emblematic of a good story and the WWE success and coming out of nowhere to matter, even if it's just for a year. Like, Rick Boogs is obviously not on Mania this year because of injuries, and also, like, will he ever be on another Mania card? Like, I would probably take money on him not. But
well, he wasn't on this year, so
no, it's already 0-1 on making it back. But yeah, it's all good stuff. Like, they're so, like we were saying at the top, they're so good at this backstage stuff. Like, they have access to the best moments, and they know how to pick them, and they know what stories are good, and like it's like clockwork at this point. But that doesn't make it any less enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything has a story, and I know that's such a blanket statement, but it's just like I forgot about all the lead up to the Knoxville like Sami Zayn match, for example, and I didn't know they did red carpet stuff or like the phone call, like giving Sami's phone number out on like TV, and
that was
him
great.
like that's a great. First of all, that's just a great use of like everybody's time. It's like, yeah, if you want to build an angle, like do stunts like that, and like take this mid-card match and celebrity match and like elevate it, and like now suddenly like it's super interesting and just different. Like I'm all for that, and again, it's too much content to keep up with. So kind of summing up all of like the major points, even a year later, I'm still just like, oh yeah, then that was really like interesting, and like it's just always nice to see it kind of like in a nice package. Like, WWE is so good at that, and even a year later, when I think like, oh, what happened last year again? It's like, oh yeah, no, this is kind of cool. It kind of reminded me how good last year kind of was.
Yep, absolutely. It was a good show, and like we said, WWE is so good at self-perpetuating the myth of WrestleMania. It's just true now. Like we've definitely brought that up before on previous episodes about Mania, but they've just told us and themselves and everyone in their orbit how important Mania is. And so, and not that Mania isn't important, but like it's become larger than life because of their full throttle, full court press on telling us how big Mania is. And and that part of me gets a little suspect when I hear that, because I'm like, come on, it's just Mania. Like, like sometimes sure. Mania is bad, and sometimes Mania is not important. But at the same time, when it hits, and especially when you see people getting excited for it, and it is the self-perpetuation there is good, because it inspires people to put out their best work. The performers, it inspires the people behind the scenes to document that stuff and present it in a compelling way. Like, it's just like wrestling needs WrestleMania. Like it's huge for the ecosystem. It's huge for everyone around WrestleMania. They run shows in its orbit too. Like, it's this spectacle truly that I don't mind seeing stuff. I don't even mind the building up anymore. The internal puffing themselves up, because I'm like, it is, especially now that it's 2 nights. It truly is a large event that deserves the treatment that gets. I feel like it's finally caught up to itself a little bit, and now it feels well partitioned out. It feels smart and important, and it deserves the hype they give it.
Yeah, I'd have to keep pointing it at our boy Boogs here, but it's like, like this might be the last one he participates in, and like we said, and it's like this really does mean a lot, and even and like I was surprised at how much like the celebrity interaction, like I think we've gotten to a point now with WrestleMania where it's like we're not just bringing out Liberace for the sake of Liberace. And it doesn't air, like Muhammad Ali is just standing there and he doesn't, or I could come up with like a million examples, but Pete Rose, but I'm just like, but like this isn't just about names anymore. You can't just be a name and just be there. Like Suki can't just do a cartwheel and do a 1-minute match and we give a shit. Like, we're actually seeing celebrities like who want to be there and are giving it their all and are putting on like outrageous performances, and it's like,
They want to be wrestlers. Like they truly are like, let me wrestle. I want to train for at least a match, and I want to have a real like 10-minute match.
yeah, and with that comes like a story to tell. It's like at McAfee, like, you know, I think I take for granted the fact that I know who he is, but at the same time, it's like, you know, I didn't know how he went from punter to like WWE like commentator. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between. I just don't know that, and like they kind of summed it up pretty well in this. And so, you know, I again, like there's stuff that I learned about these people that I take for granted sometimes. It's like, you know, this again, no, this is their bread and butter. This is what they do well, the best, and like, you know, give me more of these.
It also helps to have Austin on the card too. You know, like that's just like I said. I would have not minded a full show on that match and that build up. And he just the presence of him there is remarkable. Everyone buzzing around him. The little moments like there's a little moment with Becky where after her match, Austin tells her how good she did and she marks out really hard. Like she must have met Austin a million times at this point. But like there's still he's there watching the show, performing on the show, you know, giving you little critiques or just puffing you up, telling you you're good. Like that's wonderful stuff. Like that, I'll mark out for that every time. This is so sweet, and because I would respond the exact same way times a million. You know, if Stone Cold Steve Austin told me I did a good job, I would never need praise ever again from anyone else. That'd be good for me.
It's funny too, because even in like night 2 when Austin wasn't even wrestling, everyone was like, "Where's Steve? I need to get my validation from Steve." I guess he was in night 2 as well, but no.
Yeah, he did. He came out and stunned Vince and
Everybody,
the worst stunner of all time on Vince.
quote unquote, stunned.
But yeah, well, I mean, it's a good doc, and I'm sure there'll be one for next year as well. But I think we should segue into talking about this year's Mania because, like I said, like I hinted, I love the 2-night Mania. I mean, you agree, I presume, right? Like it's such an easier show. Even if you can't catch both nights, just not having to sit through a 7-hour slog is wonderful.
Yeah, even like now I'm a little spoiled by the 2-night Mania where it's like what the second night like went into a 4th hour. I'm like, yeah, what the hell is going on here? Not remembering that like one went until like 1 a.m. very recently.
Yeah, it's you want it to be the 4 hour is really how long a wrestling show should be. Like that's the max, I would say. So I'm really happy they went to that route, and it just gives them more of a chance to. Now there's 2 opening matches and there's 2 main events. Like they can treat everybody however they want. They can make everything into something overly important by assigning it to one of those special spots on the card and saying, "Look, this is great because this like night 1 this year with Sami and Kevin Owens versus the Usos." Like just such a generic crowd-pleasing main event in the best way. You know, like it was just nothing special, just a very solid tag match that went exactly as you expected to go, but it was the culmination of something that really was important. So to give it an important slot on the show, even if you know everyone knew the real main event was the next night, it added gravitas and it added value to an already wonderful storyline that was culminating in the best logical smart way.
Yeah, I mean, I love having the ability to call something a main event, even if it's not, because
it feels like a cheat, but it's like close enough, you know, right? Sort of like, right.
Like, I mean, do I forget if like 10 years from now they did a doc on Kevin Owens? Yeah, I main evented 2 WrestleManias, and it's like, well, asterisks, they're both night 1 events, but like. For real though, I mean that's the last match on a card that's called WrestleMania. So like in some aspects, I can't even throw shade. It's
and
just
both
like,
were probably the most enjoyed matches of each Mania too. So
I mean, if only they did this back in the CM Punk days, you could have thrown him.
Oh my God, he'd still be there. he'd be so placated.
That's all this guy wanted was just to be the last match.
He could have had some shit match with Del Rio, and they could have said it's the main event. He would have been so happy.
Yeah, in some ways though, like the night 1 is the peak. Main event is the peak because like once you get to the second night and it's like 10 hours of wrestling and it's like on a Sunday and it's like, you know, so in some ways that main event is never going to live up to when you had it just the last match of a full Sunday card. So, you know, I think just ultimately just this format just spreads everything out so much better and paces it better. You don't have to rush everything. You could have those garbage Miz filler matches that kind of like
You can have Shane McMahon can blow his leg out, and it's like, well, whatever. On to the next thing, you know.
yeah. But any other standouts from this year's that you want to?
Well, I want to talk a little bit of bitches about the mix between night one and night two because I watched both nights. My wife watched night one with me for the most part, which was a Herculean task on her part. I'm very proud of her. She did not need to do that. She could have gone in the other room, and she sat there and watched it. And I know this I was texting everybody after the show, and I was like, I'm really trying not to be that internet wrestling fan who is like, who knows where everything came from, you know, who's like, who can just feel, this felt like this to me, and this felt like that to me, and because I watch, especially like you sort of hinted at, a cursory amount of wrestling on my end, like, I really have no leg to stand on in terms of saying this, but I must say it, night one, as you sort of hinted at, was delightful and fun and proceeded the way it should have gone. Everything that happened was the logical end to a story, you know, like, which is fine. That's good. Especially where I am in life right now and where wrestling has been for the last couple decades. To me, that's always the preferred scenario. Execute your story, finish the story, as was the whole stupid, you know, tagline that they never didn't actually do. But night two just was not that. Like, night two felt different, and I don't want to speculate on who the author was of each show because I don't think that's how it works, but it was remarkable to me how much night one was quote-unquote fan service, which is their job to service the fans with delightful stories that they enjoy, and night two felt like, let's give, you know, night two had a lot of veterans on the card. It had Brock, it had Edge, it had Roman, like, and a lot of those people just won, and it felt a little bit to me like they were like, let's give the old hosses you've heard of before. Sunday night is when, you know, maybe dad or grandpa's watching Mania. Let's give them the old standbys and the boring finishes and the sort of the wrong calls, you know, subjectively, just because that's what we want to do. You know, do you have any thoughts on how that all played out?
So you feel like they mismanaged the night two from top to bottom?
I think night two was borderline bad. I feel like night two was like reminded me of other bad Manias I've seen, though shorter, which I appreciated, but had the air of this is a lot of like if I had this felt like Manias I've seen where I've walked out and been like, I didn't need to watch that. Like I got nothing. I got no real joy out of that.
So it's hard for me to. It's not hard for me to agree, but I think the best match of the whole weekend was on night two,
which was the triple threat.
Oh my God,
triple threat was great. That was the outlier in my argument for sure.
But to your point, it was a continuation. Like we are continuing the chase. I'm not sure who you would have given that win if not Gunther. I hate that I have to call him Gunther. Why did we change?
Because you want to call him because he's your namesake, and you want to call him.
He made my name kind of cool for like a second. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. And the 5-year-old me would be super stoked. But no, that match is like. That match felt different than anything else I've seen in a WWE ring in the last 10 years. Like, that was outrageously different and unique. But yeah, to your point, it was like, I guess everybody wanted like Sheamus to like win based on the crowd noise.
That was news to me. Again, I don't watch the shows, but I was like, we like Sheamus now? Like, yeah. I guess it's cool that he's like older and like, you know, still going. Like, I respect that, but
like, what are people into Alberto Del Rio too? Like, is this 2013? Like, what's going on here?
I guess people like the Brawling Brutes.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess what you're saying is,
I'm saying that we got Edge, Roman, Ronda was the one I was forgetting, and Brock all won, and it felt curious to me that like all of them won. Like Edge has beaten Finn twice in a row now. And I was like, okay, so what, this is it? Like, Finn is just super defeated now? Like, I don't really know what that... One of those guys seems like the one who should be going over. Like, I'm not the biggest Finn Balor fan, but I was like, isn't the whole point of this ostensibly to get Finn more over?
I mean, well, if that was the case, he should have won last year before he defected to Judgment Day.
Yeah, but now he's losing to the 50-year-old man, you know? And I will say, we talked about Edge on the 150th episode, like, we both enjoy Edge, you know, for the most part, but like this, you know, when he came out at that Rumble, it was so exciting. And I will say at this point, I'm like, I wouldn't mind if Edge hit the road again. I think the Edge allure is fading for me.
I think they were in trouble the second they booked a match with Finn Balor again. Like, yeah, the Demon, yeah, I get it. It's like that match was dead on arrival to me. And also thinking about the Lesnar match, like, I don't think you have Omos win that because it's fucking Omos, and I don't know. This guy is Great Khali 2.0,
Yeah.
for lack of a better. Well, I hope he's not. I hope he turns into something different. But from what I've seen, after almost 2 years now, it's like this guy is just Great Khali. So like, I don't feel like. Also, you throw rock that bone just to keep him happy. Like, I understand that booking. I'm not gonna touch the main event yet because I do want to go back to night one and just talk about how top to bottom that was pretty spectacular wrestling.
Oh, such a good show. Like, looking at the card right now, arguably the worst match on the card is Cena's match, and that was fine. I don't mind. Like, it wasn't horrible by any means. John just looked old, and I know I don't want to upset you by saying this. I'm not the first one to say it by far, but John looked old and pale and not himself.
Why would I take offense?
Well, you're such a big man, and like, I know you're not friend of the show, Chris Holcomb, so this wouldn't cut you to the core so much. But to say that a swole man is just like, I feel like there's just a pain in your heart for the swole community who may have lost one of their key cogs a little bit.
I mean, I wasn't happy with it. let me set the record.
He wasn't on his Mania roids. There's, he was, which he could be now. I mean, he's also an actor. He's got other, shoes to fill and fish to fry, but definitely not looking ready for Mania.
I mean, he also just like put together a pretty blasé match. I mean, I know he's older, but like, how's like Pat McAfee outworking him?
Yeah,
Pat McAfee's not a wrestler, and John Cena is in, by some people's accounting, the greatest wrestler of all time or top 5.
Especially
so, like,
Cena in the last 5-6 years has had his working boots on. So
yeah, and also like, I don't know what the deal is with Austin Theory. Is he gonna be good? Is he not? Is it too early to tell? But like, he also needs to kind of help out there as well. And I don't think he did it. And I think this experiment is what it is. So that was a curious one though, because I mean, I guess to your logic, if that match happened on night 2, they would have given Cena the win.
I enjoy, and again, I'm not the first person to say this either, but I enjoy that Cena comes out with all the Make-A-Wish kids and has this lovely little intro where they're all cheering him on. He's the Make-A-Wish, the ultimate Make-A-Wish hero. Everyone's so happy, and then he loses in 11 minutes to the bad guy.
Sure.
And I was like, well, that's something. Now he's got to go in the back and explain to those kids how, I guess he'll just keep fighting, But it was just, I was glad they didn't hand him the win after just, to get the kids, to make the kids happy.
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
Yeah, because when Bianca came out with her kids, which was an amazing entrance, which was remarkable and super cool, and like after that, you're like, okay, Bianca's not losing this now. Like, there's just no way. After that entrance, I love Asuka, but I'm like, I don't see any reason they're taking this away from Bianca here.
Well, in keeping with the theme of letting strong, long reigning champions cook.
Yeah. That was the night 2.
I would say that's in line with that logic. Which I'm not complaining about. I love Bianca.
No, so do I. And like you get a vibe they might be building a Mania streak thing with her too. So
great, they should be cognizant.
She won 3 times in a row, right? Sasha, Becky, and now Asuka.
Yeah.
She was never on Mania before that. So I believe she's 3-0, right? I can't believe she was
I believe so. I mean, let's assume that that's right, and I'm not going to fact check.
Well, I'm going to quietly fact check it, and if nothing disproves this, I'm going to just quietly never say anything about it.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that was a great entrance. That was a great match. She's amazing, and I hope that they unify those women's titles, because why does Rhea Ripley and her have the title? Like, let's get rid of all non-unified titles.
Well, now the rumor is that Roman's gonna split the titles, though. So
what?
That's what they're saying. That's what they're, because the draft is coming back. You're aware of this, right?
I must be in a hole because I did not hear that.
H's big announcement on Friday that everyone was making fun of because H and Tony Khan have been dueling big announcements all of a sudden. H's big announcement on Friday was the draft is returning, and there's been speculation, but since before the draft, that they're gonna just take one of the titles off Roman.
What are they just gonna give it to H like they did the last time? No, that's what happened in 2018.
I truly have no. I agree with you. I think the unified title makes so much more sense. But sometimes, AEW is just as bad as this as WWE is. They have so many belts, and that's just an excuse for X guy to fight Y guy, is for the belt. I would love for them to get rid of the belts, have one belt, and the matches are not necessarily about titles anymore. The titles are special and treated a little more uniquely and are deployed when needed, not just thrown around. They don't just have 20 belts bouncing around. But
they unified the tag titles, they unified the championships, and the prizes have been hotter. So don't tell me a title helps sell tickets. That's so stupid.
You're preaching to the choir. Look at these matches. If they had 2 tag belts, which they've had many times before, that 4-way tag match, which was really good for a just crowd pleasing spot fest, that would have had to been for the other belt, and it would have been stupid. It would have negated the Owens Sammy Usos match because it just dilutes the tag division.
Yeah, I mean, it made that match that much more special because there wasn't another tag title floating around.
You don't have to say they won the SmackDown championships. That's so great. So did all these other garbage teams over the years. Those belts mean nothing. The tag belts, when there's one tag belt, matter exponentially more.
Yeah, I agree. And also too, you didn't need to give me a strong WrestleMania Showcase 4 quarters tag match. Okay, already I'm in. Great. Give me 4 teams that are hungry to show their shit off in 11 minutes. That's all I needed to sell me. And not that I'm saying it was the greatest match of all time, but it was an entertaining match on a card that got them involved, and I didn't need the title associated. I didn't need anything beyond you setting me up with, this is a showcase of talent. That's what WrestleMania should be, a showcase of all your goddamn talent.
Yeah, it can just be person versus person for no reason, sure. With a little bit of a feud. That's really fine. It'd be nice if it was more. We always appreciate it. Even something like, Seth versus Logan, which, another good match. Logan Paul, incredible worker. I really don't want to say it because he seems like a fucking weirdo in real life and a strange online person, but damn, the kid is great in the ring. He's one of the best heels they've had in a long time. Everyone's talking about Austin Theory, me also not getting on my end what Austin Theory is all about. Look at Logan Paul if you want to see a shit-eating heel that everyone wants to have their ass kicked. Logan Paul's amazing at that.
So I concur. I think he's an incredible talent, and now that he's perfectly aligned to how the audience feels about him.
Yeah,
it's great.
There's no more, because the Mania 38 there was that aborted attempt to make him a good guy, right?
Yeah,
didn't Miz beat him up, and the idea was we're all gonna feel bad for him, and then just didn't. I think everyone didn't everyone cheer Miz when Miz beat him up, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right. Yeah,
and then I think they were okay, never mind, Logan Paul, you're a bad guy. And that's what he should be forever. Unless maybe someday he'll turn the corner, but for now he's amazing in what they're asking him to do.
Yeah. And now I'm going to set a 2-minute timer, and you're going to give me your thoughts without interruption on the main event. Go.
On the main event, night 2?
What do you think?
Yeah, it's okay. Just checking. I know the clock's ticking. I don't get it in that everything felt very aligned to, again, just do the thing we all knew was coming. I don't know where it goes from here. The wait and see brigade certainly appeared online afterwards and said, well, you gotta wait and see. We've been waiting to see for a long time. I love Roman. I think Roman as a heel is an incredible character and has done remarkable work. I just don't know where we're going with this. The only place they go with this that I like it is if Jay ends up beating him at SummerSlam. But that's what seems kind of crazy to have Jey Uso dethrone one of the longest reigning champions in WWE history, and I don't trust them to do that. And also, I don't really want to see Roman lose at SummerSlam. I want him to lose at WrestleMania to the number one babyface, who is Cody Rhodes. Whether you want that to be the case or not, he's their number one babyface, and he should have beaten the number one heel. I just think it's as simple as that. And now he's farting along in some Brock feud. I don't know where that goes. I don't want to see Cody Brock. That sounds weird. I kind of am intrigued by the oddness of that pairing, but I don't want to pay money to watch them fight. I wanted to see the bad guy lose at WrestleMania. I think unless you have a really, really, really good reason, the bad guy should lose at WrestleMania.
We have 30 seconds left. I'm
Okay.
just going to cut you off there.
You can go. You can respond accordingly.
I think this was a business decision because of the impending sale, and you don't want to take a chance on a new era when there's a lot of uncertainty from a financial perspective. That's my, I don't always call it conspiracy, but like from a business perspective, it's like that makes total sense. What it doesn't make sense is like, you know, I think that Cody, you know, we're trending towards AEW Cody reactions at times. I do think though that this setback does help make him sympathetic, because now that it was, when it became a foregone conclusion he was just going to win, people weren't as behind him. I feel like they're going to be more behind him now because everybody feels like they took something away from him now, whereas before it was like he was just crowned. Are we gonna have to wait another year for that? Probably. And now we're kind of just taking a bunch of side quests until we get back onto the main A story, or the main game, I guess, if in gaming terms. Maybe it works. But yeah, I think to your point too, it's like I think we were all kind of ready to see what the Cody era looks like, and now it's just similar like when we did with Roman when he won the Royal Rumble and we didn't pull the trigger. We're also kind of not pulling the trigger on the Cody Rhodes, and that makes me feel weird things. So I guess we're gonna jog our feet, or maybe Cody doesn't become that person and it's someone else. But like, I don't know, that's pretty fucking picture perfect to kind of give him the title there. But
yeah, and
what the hell do I know?
You're not wrong that like it's not like, I mean, Cody was never Sammy. He was never like, it's not like he had that pure babyface love behind him, you know. There's no doubt of that. But I will say, of all the baby faces they've, you know, lightly force fed to us over the last decade or two, this was going about as well as it could, you know. Like that really blows up in their face with Roman, as you described, with so many guys. Like they try and just announce this person as the champion. They basically announce it without doing the work first, you know? They tell you that someone is super cool and you love them and they're great and they're good, and they don't show you it beforehand. So when you instantly rebel and go, oh, or at least a large portion of certainly the more vocal part of the crowd rebels. With Cody, it did feel like people were pretty into it. Like, even if it wasn't an A+, I would give it like a A-, you know? I would say they did everything they could to set it up in a way that everyone was pretty much like, okay, this makes sense. This is logical. This is smart. Like, we are on board with this for the most part, you know? So to have that go so well, that for one of the few times that I can remember, and then to still not do it is very odd to me.
I guess this whole title reign really, you know, we really were trying to break Bruno's run. But
and I mean, maybe, like, I enjoy Roman. Like, but now, you know, and Roman deserves it. Should take all the time off he wants. He's been around forever. He's getting up there. Like, I don't begrudge him taking whatever time he's allowed to take. But now we're going to have... He's going to disappear for a few months, you know? And might not be back until SummerSlam for all we know. So, like, he's not even really the champion. Like, he's... You know, he's not gonna be on the card for a few months. Like, the momentum is not gonna keep going. Like, we're gonna leave the main game behind, like you said, and move on to other things. And I don't know when we come back or why. And there's certainly no one in the wings that makes sense as the next person up. Besides, like I said, Jey Uso. But it does everything I've seen. That certainly seems possible. But I just don't see Roman losing on SummerSlam, right?
That would just be kind of
I mean, I know it's the hottest party of the summer. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, yeah.
But that's all
what they say. SummerSlam hasn't been important to me in so long. But you know, I look forward to seeing next year's WrestleMania 24 when we learn about the reactions backstage from all of these things that happened this year. I kind of wish we got this 24 sooner so that we can review that and talk
I
about
know.
it.
Now that it is even when we started recording, because to look behind the curtain, we were going to do another episode perhaps, and we hope we still get to do that episode down the line. But this was like, okay, well, with our backup or our next one up is certainly this WWE 24. But it was like, okay, now we got to talk about a Mania that was 13 months old now. Like that's just outside of the wheelhouse of anyone giving a shit about it.
Right. Well, this is our plan B.
That's why we decide. Well, we're also going to talk about the Mania that happened a week ago.
Yeah, right.
That is much.
Oh
more
no, you cracked the code. This is a. I mean, it was a really good episode of WWE 24.
It was
for what it's worth.
And like I said, and 38 was a good Mania. 39 was ultimately a good Mania too. Like I have very few objections. Like I mean, I get Peacock. It's a change of the game too to not only have the 2 nights but also to have it on Peacock, which I pay $5 for, that gets reimbursed to me by my credit card, so I basically get it for free every month. So
Yeah.
I'm paying $0 to watch WrestleMania. Like if this costs $60, I think we'd have a lot stronger opinions on it. That could veer negative. But when it costs 5 or 0, what's not to like?
Well, when Endeavor has their way, you'll be paying 75.
Oh, and that's the elephant in the room too that we haven't talked about. And things are changing all the time, but with Vince potentially back in the fold, although reports conflict on how in the fold he is, but night 2 it certainly felt Vincier than night 1. I don't know what that means. Raw felt incredibly Vincy and was bad, so we'll see. I don't want to say that night 1 was the crown jewel and not an actual crown jewel like the show, but the feather in H's cap, and then it all went to shit. There's too much going on to make that proclamation. But I hope that next year, we continue on a projection of long-term storylines that have real endings that matter. Like even if they decide to postpone the Roman being dethroned, there's been a consistency to their storylines over the last 6-7 months that I really appreciate. That almost makes me want to watch the weekly show. I won't because I'm not deranged, but I think about watching the weekly shows now because that they're actually telling a story that hits the points and goes A, B, C, D, E, and I hope that sticks around for a little while.
Yeah, we shall see where all this sets out.
I don't want. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, and like you said with Endeavor, like there's probably gonna be layoffs now. Like it might be a very different roster in 6 months anyway. So
yeah, we'll be sure to record that podcast whenever that documentary.
Yeah, but it is funny you say that because we had friends who texted us and said emergency episode WWE gets sold, and I was like, we didn't even talk about it because I was like, what are we gonna say? Like what story is there?
Well, it
is a big deal, but like we don't know what's going to happen. So what are we going to talk about?
We can't review something that hasn't completely unfolded. So sorry, friends.
We tried to do that with our Vince Retires episode, and I think we just sort of rambled for 20 minutes. Right?
So overrated.
Yep, not. Well, when something happens worth discussing, we will absolutely discuss it. But
yeah.
But yeah, to loop back, kudos to WWE whatever the hell they call their documentary wing now, because the WWE 24s is a great series. We love it. Every time there's one that we should do all of them, to be honest. Like I think they've released some that we've never talked about. If we ever are in a bind, we should hop back to that. But I like the timely ones, even if they are 11 months delayed to build enthusiasm for the next Mania show. I just like seeing all this stuff, and like they're catnip for wrestling fans. Like I've never disliked one.
I would say they're 24 treats.
Yeah, they are 24.
Well, I don't know how many there are in totality, but
yeah, but they're treats regardless. They are good stuff, and it's fun. And Mania, it's a big deal. I think we're finally done with Mania though now. I think we can close the book on talking about Mania for a few months.
Yeah, we've exhausted the latitude of acceptable Mania talk.
Yes, but it was fun to do it, and it was fun to catch up on this year's show. We didn't talk about Snoop Dogg, his audible. That was quite a, and Shane McMahon. We hinted at Shane McMahon blowing his knee out, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll wait for next year's doc.
Yeah, that's that'll be. They're gonna make it sound like Shane died though. It's gonna be like the most solemn music and him getting helped out. I mean, I'm sad that a man hurt himself, but just that it's Shane McMahon huffing and puffing and like it was the most. If you had paused it and said something is gonna happen now, what are you predicting? I'd be like, is Shane gonna just die? Like, is he gonna blow? Is his head gonna explode? Like he always looks like he's about to perish when he gets down to the ring anyway. So it probably was inevitable that eventually something horrible would happen to him.
Yeah, I think that was karma for booking the Royal Rumble so shitty. Not that I was rooting for it, but it was kind of unexpected.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you all for joining us on this WrestleMania journey through 6 weeks and a handful of episodes. If you want to hear more previous Mania episodes, everything we've ever done, you can find our archives at awesometruth.libsyn.com for old episodes and new ones. You subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere podcasts are delivered, we are there. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at awesometruthpod. Walt, great to talk Mania with you. We'll be back in 2 weeks for new content. I don't know exactly what that will be, but we can promise it'll be un-Mania related. Maybe it'll be a watch-along. We got to do an April watch-along. Well, we got to find an April match that is worth us.
Yeah, Stream Rules watch-along. Or
yeah, Backlash. We got to find what's the best Backlash match ever?
It's going to take us 2 weeks to even think of what that answer is.
We're gonna hunt. If you have any recommendations for a good April match, please let us know. But either way, we'll be back with more stuff. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, the truth will set you free.